you're going towards becoming a higher version of yourself, that means you're taking ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. And what do I need to do consistently to grow into that? This is where training your mind comes in. All right, we're going to go into our topic. I've done this topic before, but it's such an important topic that I can't overestimate the importance of this. So I'll cover it in a little bit of a different angle. This topic also connects to our group coaching session this week on the human drive for congruence, which is another way of saying alignment. And what we're covering today is alignment. And my question is, are you aligned with your highest self, or do you feel like you have alignment with your highest self? And I want to break that question down into what that means in our day-to-day life, because I wanted to land in your life what that means. And then in the group session, we're going to go deeper into the specifics of what's happening in your life for yourself to work through it. But the key here is to give you some concepts and ideas that you can keep thinking about leading up to that session. And it will help you understand how this shows up in different parts of your life. So I'll get started with how this has shown up in my life, alignment versus not alignment. And for me, how it has shown up is just connected to my story, where for the longest time, I never felt like I lived in alignment with my highest self. And why didn't I live in alignment with my highest self? Well, I didn't know what that was. All I knew was that I was the way I was. I came into this world. I had a certain type of personality, and people looked at me a certain way and expected certain things from me, surprised by other things from me, and I was still trying to figure out what that was. So, and I'm kind of alluding to the idea of personality here, but what I found out much later on, much later on, longer than I would have liked to, is that there is a part of us that is much deeper than we're aware of even ourselves. And that's what I'm alluding to when I'm saying the highest self. We don't actually know what that is, but we at least know the next level towards that highest self. What is that ideal version of ourselves? And how do we know that? And this is where we do a lot of work around vision. And we do a lot of work around understanding our values within that vision. And I want to just spend a couple of minutes working through that part a little bit in this training. So what does that mean? The only way for you to understand what feels aligned with you right now towards the highest version of you is if you have any kind of vision for what your life is going to be and who you're becoming in that process. This is why that question is part of our vision building process. And this is why it's so integral to answer that, is that who are you becoming as a leader and as a human being, and in different roles in your life. That could be as a friend, that could be as a father, that could be as a husband, that could be as a wife, that could be as a son, that could be as a citizen. In all these roles, what is a higher version of you? And the only way you know that is if you have a vision for that. And here's a beautiful thing, and I didn't come up with this, the world, and this is where psychology comes in. The world of psychology interestingly came up with this. If you've studied any part of personal psychology, one of the first ideas you come up with is ideal self. And this has been tested over and over. If you ask any human being, what doesn't, like if you were to tell me, what do you aspire towards, or who do you look up to, or how do you want to grow to be, or what do you want to become? People usually have an answer to that. And it's very interesting because human beings have an answer of something they're becoming, but they are not there right now. This is why it helps to have some kind of role model. So people might not be able to answer it directly, but if you ask them, who do you aspire to be? They will say, well, I aspire to be like Jesus. I aspire to be like Elon Musk. I aspire to be like, I don't know, Bill Gates. I'm giving examples of names that people might know, but what they're really communicating is that I want to develop into a version of myself that looks kind of like that person. So what does that mean? That means that I see that strength in me, which hasn't been fully developed right now. I have the potential to, but I haven't seen that develop. Now, here's the problem with that. You guys might have heard the term static versus growth mindset. And I want to connect that with personality versus ideal self. So how does that connect? So the idea of static versus growth mindset is that static mindset means that I've grown as far as I can. This is just who I am. This is what I've learned, and I don't have the capacity to go beyond that. Growth mindset means that I have the capacity to grow towards a higher version of myself. And that's why I'm connecting the personality versus ideal self. Now, is personality an accurate assessment of how human beings should be? To some degree, to some degree. So what does that mean? That means that human beings, all of us have personalities, which means that it's a mix of maybe what we came into this world. Partly it could be our genetics, it could be our soul. We don't know how that works. It could be our environment that has created this person where you see a pattern of how we show up every day. Now, personality has its limitation, even though it's very accurate. If you look at personality studies of any kind, you can find out that if you study a person within the model of a personality study, you'll find out you can accurately predict how these people are, how somebody will generally behave in their life. If you have never taken a personality study, take it. It's a useful information for you to understand how generally you behave in certain situations. It can help you understand your strengths and weaknesses currently. Here's the limitation of it. Personality studies work to the point where you are trying to get data around how you have been so far, but they break down as soon as you think about, hey, how do I want to grow? Where do I want to grow? And this is why psychologists or psychiatrists and these guys can figure out your behavior up until now, until you decide that you're going to be a different kind of human being. That's where the personality structure breaks down. And this is the problem. Most of us box ourselves into a certain type of personality type or a certain type of person you are. So for example, I might say, well, I'm a very big thinking person. You might even hear me say that at times, that I think long term. That's a strength I have, but that's not everything that I am. I'm a person who is very detailed oriented, or I'm a person who's very process oriented. Well, none of that means that you're only that person. There are a lot of dimensions to you. And unless you are open to that, you will box yourself into that specific kind of person. And here's the idea is that nobody, including you, knows what your potential is. This is something pretty much any kind of scientist or thinker will tell you. And the more they have thought about it, the more we realize that we don't actually know what human potential is. And you don't know what your potential is. So that it's a better approach, even if it's not fully true and we don't fully know that this is true or not. It's a good model to think that there is an ideal version of me that's much better than me. And the way you can tell that is, I want you to go back to 10 years in the past. Think about that past self of yours. Think about 10 years ago, the kind of person you were in. I would, especially in this group of people that are sitting in front of me, I would venture to guess strongly that you're a completely different person. There are some things that are similar to how you were, but a major part of you has shifted. Your values have evolved. The kind of person you are has evolved. The things that you're aspiring towards has evolved. Your vision has evolved. The kind of person you want to be has evolved. All of it because you have a growth mindset. Now, I'm trying to push this to the extreme. And I like the extreme in this is because if you can convince your mind that you don't know what your potential is and you will do your best to spend your life finding out what that is, and you're also, as a leader, going to help find out what everybody around you, their potential is. So what does that mean? That means that you're going to look to grow towards a higher version of yourself, and you're going to help others around you as a leader grow towards a higher version of themselves, whether those are your children, your team members, your colleagues, your friends, your family. You're always going to go towards that. As soon as you adopt that belief, what happens is that whatever you are right now, it actually doesn't matter. I don't care if you're broke. I don't care if you're disconnected. I don't care if you have trauma. I don't care if you have anything. That means that you have the potential to grow out of that into that new version of yourself and create whatever you're trying to create. as long as that's in alignment with what you feel and think inside. What does that mean? That means that it is part of your vision. You can see it, you can feel it, you can connect with it. And that's why the vision and values are so important. And I want to add a couple other things. A lot of you might be working through a couple of things in relationships. By the way, a lot of your alignment towards an ideal version of you, the things that stop you from doing that, a lot of it is connected to your relationships. Why is that? The things that help you grow is connected to relationships, and the things that stop you are both connected to relationships. And this is why we know that the people closest to you have the biggest impact on your success, probably even more so than your skill sets at times. So we're talking about who? Your life partner, your business partners, your friends, your close acquaintances, the people around you that are constantly in communication with you, the people that have your ear, the people that you're open to their feedback, your coaches, mentor, all those people, they have the biggest influence on the kind of person you become and the kind of person you grow to be. And I want you to observe that for yourself, because every person I've taken in the past decade, when I get them to look back in their life, they find out a few people in their life have had a really big impact on how they think, how they feel, how they move through life. So what does that mean? That means that a lot of times when we're trying to grow, we're trying to look for processes. For example, if I want to create boundaries, I'm trying with people. If I want to just do the things that matter to me, I'm always trying to build processes and reminders and all that stuff. I think the biggest impact you can make is to understand what your values are, towards your high self. This is why we work on this stuff, and this is why the difference between alignment and not alignment is obligation versus ownership. What alignment does is when you understand that you're going towards becoming a higher version of yourself, that means you're taking ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. You never give power to another person, another entity, another system or environment for what you are. You take charge of what it is that you're doing. So that means that even if it's true, even if at times you feel like, you know what, I live within an oppressive government, for example, it's a big entity that you have no control over, you still don't want to verbalize that, or you still don't want to believe that, oh, you are affected by this thing. Now, it sounds like you're convincing yourself. It is. Because as soon as you convince yourself that, oh, you know what, this big entity has more power over me than my own choices, you just gave your power away and you don't have the potential to grow. You've just handed off what you do. And another, in simple things that it shows up, and I make this mistake a lot. For example, your child who will do something that frustrates you, you will say, well, you're frustrating me. What you're doing in that moment, and I've made that mistake so many times, you're communicating to a child saying that you have that power over me. Instead of owning that power, saying, when you do that, I feel frustrated. But it's not your fault that I'm feeling frustrated. It's my thing. It's the same thing with adults. When you're in a team meeting or something like that, if something frustrates you, agitates you, you need to own that, which means that you have more control over that, power over that, if you own that. If you cannot own that, that means somebody else is in charge of how you think, feel, and do. And I want to iterate this. Even if that's true in the moment, it doesn't help with your thinking process because you're giving your power away. And I want you to experiment with this, so that don't just take it as a training, take it as, what does that mean in my life? Am I taking ownership for the things that matter to me? Am I taking ownership for my own thoughts, for my own emotions, for my own actions? Or do I blame the people? And I can tell you, some of the most high-achieving people, some of the most amazing people that I've met, they do it without realizing it. They will give their power to their spouse. For example, they'll be like, well, because of this person, I'm not moving forward. Because of this person, I'm not going for my dreams. Well, if I were to go back in my life, I could have easily, about a decade ago, when I jumped into the entrepreneurship life, I could have said, you know what, this is too difficult. I need to show up for my wife and kids. I need to take care of them, so I can't move a business forward. That was an easier thing to say, but the harder thing for me to say was this: I'm going to take care of them because that's my responsibility. I've chosen to do that. But in the meantime, my dreams are just as important for me. And I'm gonna say that I'm not willing to sell my soul just because I need to take care of somebody, because this feels aligned with my path. Now, do you see that I'm owning both sides of this? the easier thing becomes that, oh, because of my children, because of my family, because of my business partners, because of the economy, I can't do this. But the harder thing is to own that, you know what, I see ideal version of myself that can do this much better than now. How do I know this? Because I know there was a version of me 5 years ago or 10 years ago that couldn't have handled what I'm handling right now. So I can conceivably see a better version of me that can handle this better. I just need to grow into that. And what do I need to do consistently to grow into that? This is where training your mind comes in. This is why I keep going back to it. Almost everything comes back to consistency, habits, and building a system for yourself internally to grow into that version of you. So what does that habit look like? So for example, if you want something big and deep enough, if it's important enough for you, for example, let's say I want to build a business that's, as an example, it's a 10 million or $100 million business. Now, I have no idea how to build that, but this is, for whatever reason, it's deeply important to me. So what does that mean? That means that I need to become the kind of business owner who can create that. Within that, there are a bunch of stuff that I need to train my mind. First of all, I need to have the mindset of that kind of business person. Second, I need to have the habits of that kind of business person. Third, I need to learn how to lead people to help me create an organization like that. Fourth, I need to start planning to create something like that, because something like that doesn't happen randomly. Fifth, I need to get organized in my life. There's no way I can create something complex like that without being organized. Now, that can apply to a lot of things. Same thing with, like, if you decide that, you know what, I'm going to be the kind of father or a kind of mother or the kind of friend who people count on or who people trust, what kind of identity do I need to adapt? What is a better version of me that can do that? Well, if you think about that vision of yourself who's like that, well, what are the qualities that that person has? Well, that person is more understanding. That person is more compassionate. That person is more assertive. That person challenges others easily. That version of me can deal with adversity a little bit better. So that means that I can pause and give myself space and work through things. That means that I can take on hard things. That means that I can build consistency in day-to-day life. So it's not the actions that are important. What is the kind of person that does that, and how can I adapt that part of that person? And then the actions are the consequences of that. This is why identity is a big thing in the world of personal development and coaching, and everywhere you hear is people, if you can understand who you're becoming and the reason behind it, and you can adapt that as a day-to-day part of your life. For example, if you have a vision, you need to visualize that vision. Why is that important to you? You need to create a plan to go towards that. That's why it's important to you. You need to build habits day-to-day that takes you towards that. Now, the process of that, and this is what we're going to cover deeply in our group coaching session on Thursday, is what is preventing you to go towards that? What is helping you and what's preventing you? And we're going to explore that much more deeply. But I want you to, throughout the week, think about what is that ideal version of you? And are you living in alignment with that version of you in every part of your life, in your relationships, in the way that you take action day to day, and the way that you do things, and the way that you think about yourself and other people, and the way that you lead other people? Are you showing up as that higher version of yourself? And we're going to go through some exercises on Thursday around that. But I wanted to leave you with this question for you to think about the whole week, because that will have the answer to almost everything that you're looking for in your life. Because if you are living in alignment with your high self, you will be at peace. Your own system will tell you, even if you don't feel like you're great at it. You're going in that direction. You're in the right direction. But if you're going the opposite of that, then you feel disconnected, you feel unease, you feel lack of integrity inside, and you feel that it's very tangible. And if you want to take this training further, download your free Unlock Your Legacy Life Power Pack at faisalensaun.com. You should be able to find the link right below. Take care. Bye.